It's time to tune into your higher frequency. It's a special edition of The Hope Show where Socratic Scourge meets metaphysical truth. And now, here are your Hope Show hosts, Eric Lamont and Tara Straight.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, everybody. Wishing you peace and love wherever you are. Welcome to the Hope Show. Listen, this is where Socratic Scourge meets metaphysical truth. Look, thank you for spending your Thanksgiving Eve with us. I know many of you are cooking. Some of you are already eating. Whatever you're doing, we're just glad you're here with us today. Purpose of the Hope Show is to help you find truth and clarity in your life. Each show, we invite the Hope Show family to explore life challenges, relationships, lessons from previous lives, etc., in hopes of helping all of us heal a little each day. I am Eric Lamont. I'm your co-host, along with the metaphysical maestro.
Here we go.
The king of keeping it real. The man who will tell you that the person that angers you the most is really not your problem. It's probably you. The pontiff of purity himself. Terrace, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mr. Dr. Lamont, I may add.
Why are you calling me doctor? I do not have
Where
a
you get these
PhD.
things from? Where you get these sayings from? Like, really?
I tell you where they don't come from. They do not come from AI. That's what we do know, right? Do not come from AI. Some of us were AI long before AI was AI, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
In my family, both myself and my sister are the people call when they want something written or edited. So
that's good to know. That's really good to know.
Sister,
right?
Huh? Seriously.
Really
Well, hey, listen. This week's episode is our most eye-opening yet. A transgender Native American guest and Terrace will share the real story of Thanksgiving. And guess what? It's not what you learned in school. And what we're talking about, what it's going to be like to navigate identity when both your heritage and your gender make you invisible. I'm going to say this episode is going to make some people angry. It will make others feel seen. It might make you uncomfortable, but it will definitely make you think. Tonight's show is brought to you by Democracy Headquarters, www.democracyheadquarters.com, and by smarttechdigitalagency.com. Grow your business and your brand with Smart Tech. Before we welcome our guest, I want to warn our family tonight that today's show may touch on historical genocide and violence against indigenous people, as well as discrimination and violence against transgender individuals. We're going to mention things like suicide ideation and mental health struggles, family rejection, and cultural trauma and erasure. We're going to provide resources in our show notes. We're going to put some resources up at the end. And so before I welcome our guest, I have to say, in a world that is kind of drowning in hatred and anger, right? It seems like, I'm almost afraid to say it because of where we are politically in this country, where if you say something that is even remotely critical of the administration of the government, you could become, a political target. Right. Yes. Exactly. And so, but, and knowing where we are today, and where we are as a society and the need for us to all love a little bit more, the person that we're going to welcome to the show today is one of those people who literally lights up a room when he walks in, because all he tries to do is love and speak the truth. And if the whole purpose of this life is to find your authentic self and to speak the truth and to love and help others, that's what this person represents. And so we're going to welcome our guest from Nebraska, Eli.
Well, hello there. I was like, who's this guy you're talking about? I want to meet him.
Come on now, Eli.
I don't know if I light up every room.
Come on now.
Well, thank you for being a little modest there, Eli.
Mm-hmm. Eric has no problem thinking that he lights up every room he goes into. So why not you?
Hey, I can only go by what they say, Terrace. I can only go by what they say. So don't blame me.
It's all good. It's all good.
Well, listen, let's mix it up and try to heal. So most people, me being one of them, associate Thanksgiving with great times, great food, the opportunity to get together with family. I'm here with family this weekend, and we're having a blast. The American tradition and myth is that Native Americans, unidentified by tribe, welcomed the Pilgrims to America, taught them how to live in a new place, sat down to dinner with them, and then disappeared, right? They handed off America to white folks so that they could create a nation dedicated to liberty, opportunity, and Christianity in order to save the rest of the world. That's the story. Native Americans conceded to colonialism, right? But the reality of it is, it's a bloodless story. That's what they told us. And that story is not true. So as we dive into this topic, I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of set some spiritual intention around honoring all identities as sacred as we go forward.
Absolutely. I would love to, Dr. Lamont. I would love to. Before we get started with Mr. Eli, I want to give intentions, as Eric said, honoring all identities as sacred. The first intention, the intention of divine recognition. May we recognize every soul as a sacred expression of the divine, unique, intentional, and worthy of honor. May we see beyond labels into the radiant truth of each being's essence. Number two, the intention of radical authenticity. May we encourage and bless the courageous acts of living authentically. Yes.
There you go.
May every person feel spiritually supported in expressing their true identity, mind, body, heart, and soul. Number three, intention of energetic alignment. May we affirm that identity is not limited by form, but flows from the soul. May we honor the deep wisdom that arises when one aligns their physical expression with their inner truth. Number four, intention of sacred respect. May we commit to speaking, listening, and acting with reverence toward all identities. May our words become prayers of respect and our actions become rituals of compassion. Number five, intention of belonging and homecoming. May all people find spaces within themselves and in the world where they feel seen, safe, and celebrated. May we become guardians of belonging. Number six, intention of collective evolution. May we recognize that when one person chooses authenticity, we all rise. May we bless those whose journeys illuminate higher paths for humanity, expanding our collective understanding of love, identity, and spirit. And finally, number seven, intention of sacred witnessing. May we witness each other not with judgment, but with wonder. May we affirm your identity is holy, your existence is a blessing, your truth is sacred.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So now that you've given these wonderful intentions, I'm going to mix it up right here. So, Eli, I want to start with you and ask you a question. So, and this might make listeners uncomfortable, but what were you taught about Thanksgiving growing up? And when did you first realize that the story was not true?
Well, I'll tell you. So I was first generation born off the reservation. My mother was a product of the boarding school experience. She was born up in Kashina, Wisconsin. I am a direct descendant of the Menominee Nation. But what was interesting about my upbringing is that there was a disconnect. Like, we knew our relatives who still lived on the res, and we went and visited, and we went to powwows, and we had family reunions up there. But I didn't really truly understand what it meant for us to be indigenous. Like, I don't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant growing up. I always knew that I was Native American. I was unfortunately at times taught by my father that we had to like kind of be quiet about that part of ourselves. And he did that thinking that he was somehow protecting us. But, you know, when I was younger, spending all kinds of time out in the sun in the summer, I get pretty brown. You know, you can't escape that. And then you put me in a white shirt and send me to Catholic grade school. I kind of stood out like a sore thumb. But I was always questioning everything. You know, we did the whole like draw the turkey and do the, you know, feather thing, headdress thing, you know, and the pilgrim hats and all that in our Catholic grade school. And I always thought there was something off about it. it wasn't until I got older and started actually doing some of my own investigating. I took a college class about Native American history and started learning. And I was like, oh, wow, this was not a party. It was one good day, but it was like one good day that we focus on out of all of the genocide and the erasure and the stripping of our culture, our spirituality, our native practices. And I always wondered when we lost those things. I thought it was because my mom moved off the reservation. Oh no, my mom was never really taught those things. You know, they couldn't even speak their native Menominee language in the boarding school. If they did, they were beaten.
Wow.
You know, so it was literally like they were being told at every turn, who you are is not okay. And that was just literally just bred into me. But I was treated different everywhere I went because I didn't look like the rest of the people in my class, the rest of the people in my neighborhood. I mean, we lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I was always othered. So, you know, initially being othered for the color of my skin, and talking about the fact that I was Native American. I mean, people would ask me, like, where are you from? I'm like, Omaha, Nebraska. No, where are you from? Omaha, Nebraska.
Well, America.
Like, yeah. Well, you know, and then I'd say, well, my mom was born on a reservation. My dad was born in Omaha, like, you know, and then I'd tell him that my dad was Italian. Oh, that's why you look the way you do. And I'm like, what is that supposed to mean exactly? You know, so people thought I was.
You said your dad used to tell people that you were Italian?
Well, they would always put the Italian first. He would always tell us to just tell people that we were Italian. And I'd say, no, because I'm not. I'm Native American. I'm both. And, you know, but it's like I could celebrate the Italian side. We had Italian family members that we would go spend holidays with and all of those things. But I always felt like something was missing, just like in school, just like in grade school. I felt like we're missing something here, you know? And as I got older and started learning more about the harms of Catholicism and Christianity when it comes to the Native American people, my people, you know, our culture, our traditions, our heritage, all of the things that were stripped from us. And, you know, and it just made me sad, first of all. But then the more I started to learn about the culture and tradition, the more I started to go, oh, that's why I am the way that I am. That's why I stand up for people. That's why I stand up for the environment. That's why I am cognizant of how we treat each other and the world. You know, how we're treating the earth, how we're treating the, you know, like I mean, it's a simple act of not putting pesticides on your lawn. Like, we've been taught all of these things that we're supposed to do because it's supposed to be like, you know, the way, but it's more like the colonizer way. It's not how my people did it.
Yeah, Eli, you mentioned something. You called it the boarding school experiment. Talk to us about that. What was that?
Yeah, I call it boarding school experience.
Experience, yes.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it was an experiment by the colonizers, but it was basically when the colonizers came, you know, they thought that the natives were savages because they couldn't understand their language. And I'm like, oh, so this is how you treat people that you don't understand their language?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
you know, I mean, right. And you as Black men, I'm sure in your history.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's just say it because it's out there. I mean, slavery was a thing.
Absolutely.
You know, and it was all at the hands of folks who were colonizers because they believed that their way was the only right way. And anything else was foreign and wrong and bad and needed to go. And again, it's like, you know, we ended up here in Omaha, Nebraska because my grandparents were part of the Indian Relocation Act of the late 50s. And it was all these promises by the government. If you further assimilate into society, meaning you move away from the reservation and you continue to like say that those practices are no longer things that you do, and you come live out in the world, we're going to give you certain things. We're going to help you with work. We're going to give you some stipends, whatever. And none of that stuff ever came true. And the lives that they were living off of the reservation, my grandparents, they lived in a tiny apartment in, over off South 13th, just up from the zoo here in Omaha. And, they weren't by any means stretch of the imagination wealthy at all.
Right.
And, to me, it's just like they had, ancestral and familial traumas that they were passed down from, right? Things that were unhealed for them. I mean, my grandfather was an alcoholic. They called it firewater. When the colonizers came and they brought their firewater, it really wreaked havoc on Native American communities.
Yeah.
My Menominee people, we're
in the Native American community, Eli.
What's that?
Is that a prevalent problem in the Native American community?
It has been. I mean, and I would say, though, it's not even just a prevalent problem within Native American communities. I think it's a pretty large problem across the board for all people. There's a lot of folks who suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction and other addictions that, we don't live in a society where we say that it's okay to seek help and get better and be healthy. So we just compound problems. It's like, I didn't know. Again, it's kind of like this. Even as a young person, getting together on holidays always felt so disingenuous to me, because it was like some of these family members we never see all year long. And then we're going to go and have this, break bread and have this meal with these folks that I don't even really know. Like, it just seems strange to me.
Right.
Yeah,
and so
one of the things we know, like, there was an original meal, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was a meal to celebrate some sort of a land deal, and then there was a second meal a couple of years later, which was supposed to be we're going to have this great relationship meal. And I think at that second meal, several hundred Native Americans were mysteriously poisoned. That kind of set off like the years of pain and suffering, and as you said, colonizers trying to force their will, take land, force their will. Like, what do you think the effect would be on America if we actually told this story in schools instead of the real story? I mean, instead of the
well, I think that, to be honest, I think we've already seen some of the effects of that. And so what's happening now is public schools are under attack, because a lot of public schools are saying, no, they're no longer having the students do anything that's Pilgrim or Native American related. They're still doing the hand turkeys, but that's different, right? That's just talking about what is it. And again, I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody's holiday. I say getting together and showing gratitude and appreciation and love for one another is a beautiful thing. And that's the story that I think that we should be telling. Not that there was this big, great relationship between the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, because there wasn't. And again, I was watching a quick interview with on one of the night shows, the late night talk shows were kind of funny with their comments. But there is an indigenous chef who wrote a book, and he's got a place up in I believe it's Minneapolis, and he's really well known for his food, because he's like a 5-star chef. He's, done his thing. And the guy asked him, he's like, what do you think about Thanksgiving? And he basically said the exact same thing I did. It's like, it's like we have this horrible story about what happened, but we're focusing on one meal that was good.
Right.
And it's just ridiculous. But I think as a society, what do we do that? We talk about toxic positivity all the time. To me, this is the toxic positivity to the nth degree, mm-hmm. Right? Because, we're just going to cover everything up. Like none of that happened. Just like all the other genocides, just like slavery, just like what happened to the Jewish people. I mean, it's like we want to cover up those things. And again, the more that we cover them up, the more that we will repeat history in other ways.
That is true.
And we're seeing it happen now. We're seeing that happen now. You know,
it doesn't.
They started. Yep. I mean, the decimation of the Jewish people started with trans people. It started with the others, the gay people. Mm-hmm. You know, they were the first ones to be, you know, marched off and said, you know, this is not okay. There's something wrong with these people, you know, and the bottom line is that all these years that we've heard politics say that the gays, the LGBTQ plus community has an agenda, that was just a projection for all of the agenda that they kept having. It was their agenda. It was never ours. I just want to be able to live my life, you know, go to work, not be treated like crap, have my rights, be able to get health care. Like I want what everybody else wants. I want to be loved and be able to be in a relationship and have that relationship be acknowledged and also take on the responsibilities of that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Again, we act like marriage is this like really end all be all thing, but like 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Right.
And that's a real number.
You have the right to be miserable just like everybody else.
That's right.
That's your God-given right.
Yeah. But, you know, I just think it's sad. It's like, and we also don't necessarily have, you know, like this will seem like it's kind of off track, but I'm gonna talk about it because I think it drives home a point. So I happened to watch a documentary, like a 2-episode or 3-episode documentary on this actress who had a stalker, and I'm trying to remember her name now. I'll find it really quick.
Terrace.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Eva LaRue. Eva LaRue from CSI Miami. Yes. So I'm watching this, right? And this woman, this person sent her letter after letter after letter, threatening to show up at her home. And then this person would send letters to both of her husbands, her first husband, who she had a child with. Like this went on for like 13 years. As her daughter got older, he started sending letters and making phone calls to her school. Stalker behavior, right? Mm-hmm. And they finally found him through DNA stuff, because who knows, he licked the envelopes. I mean, but they finally caught this guy. And guess what? Guess how many years he spent in prison?
How many?
Take a wild stab.
I have
3.
No idea. Wow.
3?
3 years. But see, this is the thing, though. We as a society do not hold those who perpetrate those kinds of harms accountable at all.
Yeah. So what do you say?
Slap on the hand.
So Eli, what do you say to someone, because I get this all the time about slavery. What do you say to someone who says to you, yeah, but that happened 400 years ago. It wasn't my people. Like I have nothing to do with it. Why are we even talking about it?
Well, we're talking about it because it still has an impact on people like me. There are folks who actually don't think Native American people are real to this day because of the way that the history has been, you know, tainted. And the impact on me and my life, my family members, the Native American, all Native American people. Like to us, today is more of a day of mourning. It's like no Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
And so it's a day of mourning. It isn't something that is a celebration. And again, I'm not trying to tell people not to get together and have family meals and celebrate a holiday, but just call it that. And celebrate the fact that you have a family who can come together and share their gratitude. Like that's one of the things that we started to do. I would say it's probably been about 20 years ago now, but my family and my previous partner and we spent the day sharing what we were grateful for. Now, granted, a good percentage of us were all Native American.
Right.
But we talked about what we were grateful for
Mm-hmm.
and what we were hoping for the upcoming year in our lives, right? The new year, and how will we change? What can we do to continue to bring goodness and light into the world, as opposed to what we're witnessing these days?
You know, Mr. Eli, I want to make a comment about what you were saying earlier, because when the truth is not talked about, it doesn't create a space for empathy, right? This holiday creates an opportunity to have a teachable moment and talk about the Native Americans and the horrors of what really went on, and a way to give thanks, but also to have empathy, right? To have another reason to accept a group who has been marginalized, murdered, killed, oppressed. And as an African in America, certainly, Dr. Lamont and I understand this, right? And it's like we waste an opportunity to tell the truth. We're so afraid of people, the oppressors being maligned or feeling like, and start making excuses. This is what happened.
Yeah.
And people are still under oppression as a result of it. They are still dealing with the effects of it. Black folks still deal with the psychological effects of post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? We still deal with that today. We see it today. We see some of the same behaviors in the Native American community, the same behaviors. And yet we don't use this information as a teachable moment to help us to have more empathy for each other, right? To have more love for each other. So as a result, then we look at who we get in office, or we get somebody in office that we don't care for, and then we project all our stuff onto them, and not understanding that we create these situations by our lack of having a conversation about it, by our lack of acknowledging it. And I was telling Eric that I felt like, on Thanksgiving, we should pay tribute to the Native American community generally by wearing a piece of gear or something, and have at least a brief discussion about it and what it means, and then give thanks. It's just a recommendation. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? But it's really a way of honoring ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a way of honoring humanity.
And you bring up a really excellent point there, because nobody says that you can't educate yourself and then share that with your family at the meal and say, look, the land that we're on, like we get land acknowledgements all the time when it's like it's out public and it's a bigger deal. But are you doing those kinds of things at home? This is the other thing where I'm like, people have started to ask me now, if they ask me to speak somewhere, they'll say, hey, do you want us to do a land acknowledgement? And I said, the last person that asked me that, I said, do you do it regularly now? Well, no. Then no, I don't want you to do it. But I would recommend that you start doing it regularly, because then it's just not a one-off moment because you happen to have a Native American person coming to speak at your event.
Exactly.
Like, to me, that's disingenuous.
Right.
But I think the other thing that happens is that people think it's up for debate, right? Like, I love it when people say things like, well, Native American people own slaves too. And I'm like, yes, I absolutely know that. But that doesn't dismiss the fact.
Up a wall when people say
Yeah.
things like, well, black people sold Africans sold slaves to like, come on. Like,
yes. Come on. And I have to laugh because it's like, you're still trying to debate something. I'm trying to get you out of your head and move you into your heart.
You come to a land where someone is already there when you get there, and you bring smallpox, blankets filled with smallpox, murder and kill and lie. I mean, come on.
Right.
I mean, you're talking genocide. Okay.
Well, and then this is the other thing I tell people. I say, look, okay, you may not have been, you yourself weren't there back then. So no, you didn't cause it. But where back in your family history might there be someone who did? And if you're not willing to do that research, I tell people all the time, I said, look, I am Native American and Italian. There's also some Polish in me and some English and some other things. I got a whole breakdown of all the things that are in me. And I love it because I think, wouldn't it be ironic if I trace back my Rigatuso roots, right? The Italian roots, and I find out that I'm related to the man that claims to have discovered America. And decimated my people. What do I do with that information, right? What do I do with that information? I certainly don't have to, shove my head in the sand and act like it's not a truth, right? And I think that's what people do. It's like, I'm one of the good ones. I don't do that kind of stuff. Well, the truth is we all do horrible shit.
The truth.
We do it in our heads all the time. Like I challenge anyone to be aware of the conversations that they're having with themselves at any given moment.
I just want to go on record that
that you did not own a slave.
Oh no, I'm guilty of stuff you can charge me with before or after going forward. But Tara Strength, on the other hand, is the
here we go.
For as long as I've known him, he's been the one.
That's not true.
He's been the one person who I can always count on to say and do the right thing.
Oh boy, that's not true.
So,
well, I'll tell you. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I have a lead foot, and my lead foot got me a speeding ticket recently, and so I had to spend the past 2 days in class so that I could get my ticket.
Classes, didn't you?
Yes, I had to go, but it's funny because it's the STAR class.
Because it's professional speeder.
That's right. It's the STAR class, and you have to actually go for 2 nights in a row and not just one. And I'm like, I'm a STAR speeder. I'm not just taking the stop class. I'm the STAR. Anyway, I'm in this class, right? And I always have to think, do I come out? Do I share who I am? Does it really matter? And I decided that I'm not going to say anything during this class about any of it. I'm just going to be in the class, do the thing and whatever. And of course she's, talking about wanting people to engage and talk and whatever. And like, I also have to say though, I have a trans flag on the hood of my truck. So it's like, if I do start talking about myself, and I also have my logo for my business and my, website address. It's like, I'm easy to find. But anyway, I decide I'm not going to say anything. Well, then, no kidding, halfway in the first half hour of class, she's talking about something, and she literally comes out as Christian. And shares about her Jesus music and about being married, and that she drives a motorcycle. And the whole next 4 hours, every time she had the chance to talk about her Jesus music, she brought it up. She was talking about deep breathing exercises. If you find yourself speeding and you're frustrated or you're anxious, deep breathing exercises. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, y'all don't want me to talk about who I am, but you think it's totally fine to come into this class. And trust me, I was not the only person of color in the room. but there was an interesting, diverse group of people in the room, you know, male and female, couple of maybe non-binary folks in there, Black people, there were Asian people, there was Native people. Like, we were this microcosm of the world. And I just wonder how many other people sitting in the room thought, shut up about your Jesus music. I don't need to come here and be proselytized to.
So Eli, I was looking for the transition and you gave it to us. So
you're welcome.
So thank you. So told you Eli was always being helpful, always. So Eli, so on a serious vein, so you know, you have to deal with having your history erased or identity almost erased as a Native American on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you also identify as a two-spirit, right?
Yes. Yep.
So for the people at home, can you please share what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you know, just like there are 500 and some odd tribes across the globe here, they all have a different belief about LGBTQ plus people. Although I will say the predominant belief about us being two-spirit, and they actually, my tribe in particular, sees all folks within that LGBTQIA2S plus umbrella, right, as two-spirit, and 2S is two-spirit. And what that is, though, is that for most of us, it's a balance between the masculine and the feminine. But it doesn't have anything to do with gender or even really sexual orientation, as much as it has to do with the fact that for my people, prior to colonization, if a person like me was born into your family, your entire family was considered blessed. And that person, whoever that two-spirit person was, they were culture bearers. We were the storytellers. We were the medicine people. We were the therapists, because we could see both sides to a heterosexual relationship and be able to help create balance. If there was a tragic accident and a child lost their parents, there were two-spirit people who would take those children in and raise them as their own.
Wow.
And when the colonizers came, they saw us as not good, right? As deviant, savages. And they literally dug pits and threw people like me into them and allowed wild dogs to rip us to shreds. And there is historical information out about that. That's not something I made up. And so I say that what happened is that our people wanted to protect us. And so they hid us to keep us safe. And then there was a great forgetting about who we were. Well, in the early 90s, there were a group of Native American folks who had been meeting very consistently, who were a part of the LGBTQIA2S plus community. And they were the ones who coined that term of two-spirit and started to bring back those traditions and talk about two-spirit people as being a blessing in the world and to their families, and that we hold positions that are very important within our culture. And I say that I'm two-spirit mainly because I have been doing advocacy work almost since I came out of my mother's womb. Because ever since I was little, I was pointing things out, like going to grade school.
Take us back when you realized that you were transgender. Like, what was that moment of recognition like for you?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I honestly had always had kind of in the back of my mind that I'd always known that there was something about me that was different. And I had these like almost like whiffs or wisps of memories of things that happened when I was younger, but I didn't have any tangible information. And so I actually kind of took an interesting road to get to where I'm at today. And part of that road was that as I got older and became attracted to people and interested in them romantically, I found that I was interested in women, right? More interested in girls, females, people who were feminine presenting, right? Mm-hmm. And so I came out the first time that I came out as a lesbian, although I hated that word. I also didn't really like the word butch dyke. And this was in the 80s, right? I came out to myself. I knew when I was like 12 or 13 that I was attracted to girls. I had a huge crush on my neighbor. And honestly, as we fast forward, like I still know that neighbor today. When I first came out as a lesbian, I actually told her first and then admitted that I had a crush on her all the time. And she just laughed. She's like, oh, she goes, I bet that made you feel really comfortable then when I was asking you to be my husband or the family dog if we were going to play house. And I was like, yeah, it's a little more comfortable than you think, because I didn't share. She didn't know about the other part, right? But anyway, I was like, oh yeah, those were some pretty solid memories. But
so you told her later. Who was the first person that you told?
The first person that I ever told about my sexual orientation was actually a friend of a friend. And I was listening to this song called These Dreams. God, who is it that sings that? It's those two women. It'll come to me. Anyway, it's this song called These Dreams. And we just happened to be listening to the song. It was popular at the time. And I said to her, oh, I think I'm gay. And I was probably, I don't know, 18, 17. Mm-hmm. And she says, oh, well, okay. And I was like, it wasn't because I was attracted to her, because I wasn't.
Right.
She was the first person that I actually said that to.
Right.
Okay. Then fast forward to, I was kind of a late bloomer. I graduated from high school in 1983, but I actually didn't go to college until 1989, 1990. I had to kind of take a weird route through dealing with alcoholism of my own, like some of my own stuff that was going on with me. Mm-hmm. And I really actually love my entire story because my journey gave me insight to a lot of different things. I got sober in 1987 and stayed sober for like 32 years. And like now I might have an occasional drink, but like, I don't call myself an alcoholic.
Right.
But I did spend time going to AA and like learning how to like be better and treat myself better and learning how to like create a group of people that you can count on, create a community that you can rely on. And in that time I was out. I told these people, I went to a couple of the LGBTQ plus meetings in town and like created a community with people, a chosen family, if you will, of people who were sober and who also were kind of on the same mission that I was on, which was to change the way people like us were being treated in the world. Back in the late 80s, I never would have thought for a minute that there would be gay marriage or equal marriage would be a thing. Like I never believed that to be possible because I had to hide pieces of myself all the time.
Right.
So fast forward to so I came out to that friend, and then I ended up coming out to my family, and I came out to, my community. I came out to my work, my place of business. And then I went to college, and I was out in college. Like I actually was one of the first people to come out in one of my classes, because we were having a conversation and all they were talking about was traditional marriage, heterosexual relationships. And I was like, wait a minute. And I just blurted it out in class. And my instructor was like, well, that's a very interesting perspective, and I appreciate that. And what was interesting is every year after that, she would invite me back to class to share my perspective. Yeah. And so for me, kind of tying it in that to my two-spirit self, right? Like that advocacy work to me is grounded in my being two-spirit. So fast forward to my turning 50, which was 10 years ago. I know it doesn't look like it, but 10 years ago when I turned 50, or actually it was before I turned 50, I happened to be watching the Caitlyn Jenner 2020 interview with Diane Sawyer. And this was before she called herself Caitlyn. I don't want to go off the rails on her because she is what she is, and she is not a good person, and she's not a good example of what being trans in America is. But we don't need to have that conversation. All I know is that when I watched that interview, something inside of me woke up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm trans. Like all these years I was trying to fit myself, right? Where do I fit in the community? And I'm not one of those people who like makes fun of all the letters in the initialism. Like I feel like every single one of those letters has value, and that we all grow and change and evolve. And you might find yourself identifying with a different letter down the road, and it's all okay. I mean, what an opportunity. What incredible possibility is there in that, right? So I come out to myself as trans, then I go to my mom and I ask her if she saw the Jenner interview. And you have to think of two things, and the reason why I share this story. First is Diane Sawyer was using male pronouns with Caitlyn that day and using her dead name because she hadn't come out as Caitlyn yet. And so I go to see my mom the day after, and she's living in an assisted living facility, suffering from dementia. You know, sometimes she was pretty much there and sometimes she wasn't. And just for giggles and kicks, I thought, I'm going to ask Mom if she watched that interview, because she and her BFF Shirley watched a lot of TV. Right. And she says to me, she says, oh, I did. And my favorite part was when she pulled her ponytail holder out of her hair and her hair fell on her shoulders. Oh my gosh, she is just beautiful. And I was like, whoa, like not only did she remember it, she spoke about it very clearly about something that happened in the interview. I was kind of taken off guard. And then she leans forward and says to me, well, what did you think? And I said, of the interview? And she goes, no, of your growing up. And I said, well, Mom, if I'm being honest, I believe that I'm a boy born in a girl's body. She goes, oh, I know it ever since you were this big. And she like,
they always say that. Yep.
Of about a height of a 4 or 5 year old. She says, you told me you were a boy. And then she got real serious and she said, and I'm so sorry, because I didn't know what to do for you. I didn't know how to help you. And I am like
an incredible moment of clarity for her, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially because she had dementia.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So here's some statistics. There are 2.8 million people age 13 and older who identify as transgender. There are about 700,000 transgender women, 731,000 transgender men, and about 707,000 who identify as non-binary. 724,000 youth identify as transgender. It's important to note this. This information is from the UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, Williams Institute. And they did the study based on information they got from the CDC. This could be the last study of its kind because of the Trump administration's efforts to deny the existence of trans individuals and erode their rights. Younger Americans, 18 to 29, and those with college degrees are generally more likely to express supportive views of transgenders. No surprise there. Democrats are much more likely to express supportive views. No surprise there. Republicans are much more likely not to. No surprise there. But overall, 56% of Americans support non-discriminatory protections in terms of jobs, et cetera. So here's some of the risk factors. Obviously, discrimination and harassment, family rejection, lack of support, the political climate. I think it's important to touch, on suicide. Lifetime suicide attempts run between 29 and 40%. Just in the past year, 12% of LGBTQ plus young people have attempted suicide, and a full 14% of those identify as transgender and non-binary. So it's a problem, right? It's a challenge. So for you as a Native American and as a transgender, which has been more difficult for you to navigate?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when I first came out as trans and I was, like really going hey, this is it. And I took it on. Like, I was on the fast track, right? Like, I got on hormones within 3 months, did all the thing that, and this is the other thing that people don't know. If you go out to the World Professional Association of Transgender Healthcare, WPATH.org, they have been doing this type of healthcare and research around transgender healthcare for decades, right? The folks that are currently in political office want to try to lead you to believe that that is not the case. And they've also perpetrated a lot of lies about transgender healthcare and what's happening with young people and all these other things. And those are all untrue, what they're saying. But the problem is that you have people who aren't questioning what they're being told, right? But for me, I came out as trans. I was really excited initially. I felt like, oh my gosh, I finally feel like I'm truly and genuinely being my full authentic self. You know, December 21st, 2015, that same year, is when I had my first gender affirming surgical procedure, and I had top surgery. And I got to tell you guys, that was a pivotal moment in my life, because it was the first time that I truly believed that I inhabited my body. And I was like, whoa, that's what dysphoria is. How I had been feeling. I was so disconnected because I couldn't relate to the chest that I had. It felt like there was something not right. And I don't regret that. It is one of the single biggest gifts I've ever given myself. It was a $7,500 procedure, and I paid for all but about $500 of it out of my own pocket. I scraped and saved and put the money together so that I could make it happen. And I don't regret it for a second. Mm-hmm. People say to me, you know, but I tell you, I was one of the first people to come out as trans at my place of employment. I am proud to say that I weathered a huge storm because my manager at the time was trying to get me fired, and there was a whole bunch of mess going on. But thankfully, I was able to go to the president of the university and have a very straight conversation with her about what was happening, and she took care of it. And I'm still there, and I'm now a manager, and I've been fully supported, and I absolutely love the fact that we were able to get through it. But I got to tell you, there were 2 years there where things were not good. And I thought about, like, what did I do to myself? Why did I own this truth? And in the midst of all of it, and I was having some serious, like, mental health. I was suffering from PTSD and didn't even realize it because of how I had been being treated. It also triggered some of my historical and ancestral trauma that I had yet to deal with.
Right.
There's also some gender trauma that thankfully the therapist that I was finally connected with in like 2017, 2018, she actually started putting words to some of the ways that I was feeling. And that was when things really started to turn around for me. And I have not since then. And I will say that I ended up getting in touch with her because I literally found myself sitting in a parking lot at Target, Googling how many Tylenol PM do I have to take to make sure that I do not wake up.
Oh, wow.
And my partner happened to text message me at the same time, and they asked, "How are you?" And I lied and said I was okay. But that text coming through somehow woke me up enough to get me home. And I came home and I put myself in bed, and the next morning I woke up and I felt horrible about lying to my partner. And so I called my partner up and told them the truth about what was happening. And they did the best thing they could have done for me at that time. And they said, you need to open the phone book or Google and look for a therapist. And I do not want you to call or text me until you have an appointment scheduled with someone. period. And I was like, what? And they were like, no kidding. And I did. I mean, I spent the afternoon calling around, and I finally found a therapist who I still have today. And that pretty much saved my life. Yeah. And I have never had suicide ideation since. But I will say, though, I can really understand for some trans folks who will come out and begin their transition and then say, oh my God, I need to just completely uproot my entire life and move away.
Right.
So that we can start fresh as the person that they say that they are. Like when I was going through the issues that I was going through at my work, I was applying to all kinds of other jobs, but I was in the beginning of my transition. And then I was like having to call previous employers and having them change my records so that it reflected the name that I was now calling myself and the name that's literally on my driver's license and my gender marker that was male. Right. And so it's like people don't understand the waters that we have to navigate as trans people. And then to like make it sound like it's a choice is ridiculous because it isn't. So, you know, I've weathered a lot of storms.
I think a lot of people do think that it's a choice, or there are some people that are crazy enough to think that it can be trained out of you. Right. I think, you know, former Vice President Mike Pence, I think, was one of those people who believe that it could somehow be trained out of you, which is
right. You can be cured. You can be cured.
Make sure we get these in. We've got 2 questions that came in through the Hope Show comments at gmail.com. The first question is from Gregory in California, who wants to know your position or your idea about the swimmer that swam for the University of Pennsylvania, competed as a man for the boys swim team, who decided that he was transgender at some point in his career and became a female swimmer, and then won the Ivy League championship. And Gregory wants to know what your opinion is on that. Do you think that that's fair or equitable? Does that in any way
which swimmer are we talking about here?
As a young lady, if you recall the story, the news story was that there was a young man who swam for the University of Pennsylvania, was probably ranked the 500th best male swimmer in the country. And at
was
some
this
point,
Leah Thomas?
I think that is Leah's. I think that's the name. Yes. And then at some point decided to become, announced or came out as transgender and moved to the women's team. And I remember it was a big news issue. There was some flack on campus about it. And Gregory wants to know your opinion about that.
Well, so gosh, that is it's kind of a loaded question, because I personally believe that there still is not a clear understanding about, like, people don't know that there have been studies done on trans women who start taking cross hormones, and that they actually lose some of their physical ability. And it's a pretty significant degree. And so I think all of this like conversation around, because again, they're not respecting the person. Even Gregory, I mean, bless his heart, is referring to this person who now sounds to me is an out trans person identifying as female. She is a female. She is not a man trying to get ahead in sports. Most men will not become women to get ahead in anything, as far as I'm concerned, because most men don't see women and respect women for having any sort of strength at all. So like, this is kind of a deeper, complex conversation that you can't really necessarily have with one example. But I can tell you that the NCAA, college athletics, had set up a committee of people to review each trans person's records and to look at and decide whether or not they could compete. They didn't do that for the cisgender folks. But the transgender folks had to have a certain level of T, had to be below a certain level. Like there were a lot of things that were already happening. They had to be on cross hormones. They had to have been living as the gender that they believe themselves to be for a certain number of time before they could compete. They were doing the same thing with the younger kids in athletics. And so, you know, I mean, I think people are looking for a clear-cut answer, and there isn't one.
And there isn't one. Okay, fair enough. So we are right up on an hour, but we realized that we had some YouTube connection issues, and so part of the first show may not have been live. We're going to extend the show by a couple of minutes. We will. Everything we do is recorded. So after the show, for those of you who may have missed a couple of minutes at the start, we're going to repost the full episode in its entirety so that you can see how the show started. We've got an email here from Nancy in Philadelphia who wants to know, have you experienced violence or threats because of who you are?
Oh, yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I've actually had people write me letters and send them to my house.
Really?
And I got to tell you, when you get some of the letters that I've gotten in your home, at your home, that hits a whole different kind of way.
So what type of letters?
Oh my gosh. You know, saying things like, you know, you can lob your breasts off, but that doesn't make you a man. You know, like, or calling me a pedophile, because that's the new buzzword for folks who are LGBTQ plus, that we're all just pedophiles. And I'm like, anytime anybody calls me, right, and anytime somebody calls me a pedophile, I always say, okay, pedo, right back at them. You know, thanks for sharing. I've had online violence, threats being made to me, and things that I don't even want to share out loud because they're so gross. And I just wonder, I just keep thinking to myself, like, unfortunately, we don't have a higher standard for how we treat one another. You know, it's like, and in this world now where it's like, we're like living in the wild, wild west, like all bets are off. People are going to say whatever the hell they want to now. And there's no, you know, Facebook stopped policing any of the bad comments. They took away all of those other restrictions. And, you know, as soon as DEI ended, so did all of the things that were supposedly in place that were supposed to protect us. And now the voices that are louder are the people who are saying gross things. I rarely go on Facebook anymore, and mostly because I can't even go and look at people that I follow and read the comments without seeing someone making some sort of disgusting threat.
That's unfortunate. And that just speaks to the ignorance that we have out here in this world, and the lack of love. And this is the reason why we're talking about this on a Hope Show and why we're doing this show, because again, we truly don't understand that we are all one. And without I feel a spiritual perspective, and this is why you see this happening more and more. This is why you see the young people becoming more and more accepting, to usher in a new world, right? Because we have to. I just thought it was fascinating how you talked about in your own, the Menominee people. I think you said, if I said it correctly, I probably said it wrong.
Yeah, no, you did.
The fact that the way they see you as a two-spirit, and then the colonizers come. It's the same stories over and over and over and over again. It's the same stories, you know. And there's something wrong with you because it's not their way, because they don't understand. They don't understand. They don't understand it metaphysically, you know. And we have to start speaking out, because we truly don't understand that when we don't take a stand and speak out, we're doing this to ourselves. You know.
And you know, here's the other thing that I think people need to really think about, is that so many people think that it doesn't touch their life.
Exactly.
And the bottom line is, it does.
It does.
If you have any family members who have like removed themselves from the family, you might want to check in on them, because chances are they're either trans or LGB.
Yep.
And they're not around you because you are not a safe person to be around.
Exactly.
And you know, the statistics that you brought up earlier, I want to highlight something, okay? So that huge number of folks who are at risk for suicide, right? The big number that you posted there earlier, 50 some or 40 some odd percent. Do you realize that for trans and LGBTQ plus youth, one single loving, supportive person in their life affirming who they are reduces their risk of suicide by 40%. Just one person. And that, I learned that statistic, and it has held for decades. And I learned that statistic probably 4 decades ago, and it has held. There was a woman who did a huge study in California, and she came to Omaha and did a talk about it and shared about that statistic, but it stuck with me. And so when people say, why do you, if you don't want people to be mean to you, why do you even come out? I'm like, nobody wants anybody to be mean to them. I mean, come on. But I also am not going to go back into some closet just so that you all can be comfortable.
Exactly.
Like, I did not come out as trans. I spent the first 50 years of my life expressing my gender in a way that made you all comfortable.
Exactly.
While I slowly died inside. Exactly. And I decided to live. The only choice that I have ever made, the consistent choice along the way that I have made, was to live. And to be a beacon of light and hope for the youth around me. I can't tell you, I've got, like I said, I have a trans flag on the hood of my truck. And I literally, in the past 3 weeks, have had 2 parents who work at the same university I do say to me, when I first saw your truck in the parking lot, one woman just recently moved here, and she said, I saw that truck and I thought, oh my gosh, I am so grateful. And she said, because she has a trans kid.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw that flag, and, and she actually brought her kid to work one day, and the kid said, and this was before the kid came out as trans, but brought the kid to work. And the kid happened to say, hey, what is that truck? What is that? And the mom says, oh, that's a trans flag. Well, what is trans? And so she's sharing with the kiddo what being transgender is. And she thought, she just said, and we love all people, and we believe people when they tell us who they are. And the kid was like, oh, okay. And, then literally she said, like a month later, the kid sits her down and says, hey, remember that truck we saw in the parking lot at your work? And the kid comes out as trans. And she was like, I just want to thank you for living your life out loud and proud. And that's it. I had a moment where I thought to myself, I'm probably going to have to start to live somewhat stealth. Because now it's funny, because when I come out as trans, people think that I'm transitioning from male to female. Or they're not sure which direction I'm going in, because I'm still kind of soft, I mean, I have 50 years of estrogen pumping freely through my body. So I'm not like the younger guys that start T when they're, 20 or 24 or whatever, the ones that with the full mustaches and beards that, that's the other thing. Like, people don't understand. We all actually have the capability to use cross hormones. That's why this works, because we all have T and estrogen in our bodies. It's just different varying amounts.
Right.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so
Eli, you have shared so much of your truth. You shared so much of your authentic self. We really thank you for that. Here's some resources up on the screen. Text 988. It's a suicide and crisis lifeline. You will get a response back. The Trevor Project is a crisis intervention and suicide prevention service for LGBTQ plus young people. That's 1-866-488-7386. The Trans Life Lifeline is 1-877-330-6366. If you're Native American and you need some support, the All Nations Hotline for Native Americans, just text support to 33464 to receive assistance if you're in crisis. And the Strong Arts Native Helpline, 1-844-762-8483. And when in doubt, Google for help. You're not alone. There are resources out there. If you're struggling with some of these issues, there are people that will help you. There are people that love you. Don't be afraid to reach out. Harris, strength.
Yes.
Why don't you take us home?
Yes, I want to. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Mr. Eli here, dropping jewels for us. So I want to talk about what transgenderism basically means from a spiritual perspective or a metaphysical perspective. Let me get my stuff together here. Okay, I'm going to try this. It's my first time. And
Terrace is like that uncle that you have that really
that calls you up. I got a new phone. Yeah. I got a new phone. How do you get this thing to?
That's me. That is it. That is TV.
I love it.
That is me. From the perspective of the soul, gender is not simply a biological classification. It is an energetic frequency. Some souls incarnate into physical bodies that do not match their dominant energetic essence. This is not due to a mistake in their pre-life planning, but because profound growth, purpose, and spiritual awakening often emerge from this contrast. For transgender souls, the desire to transition is not about rejecting the body they were born into. Instead, it's about bringing the body into harmony with the soul's energetic identity. This desire runs deep because as the soul begins to remember its true essence, the physical form may feel too restrictive to hold that truth. This mismatch creates spiritual discomfort so intense that it calls for resolution. In such cases, alignment becomes a sacred calling rather than a preference. Transitioning is not driven by vanity, confusion, or rebellion. It is about energetic congruence, achieving harmony in this life experience. When the soul knows this is my energy, yet my body does not reflect it, the human experience can feel like wearing someone else's skin. Some souls adjust to this, but for many, the inner pull becomes so strong that physical realignment becomes not just desirable, but necessary, much like a person being irresistibly drawn toward their life purpose. It is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to their true self. This journey often begins with an inner knowing, an energetic recognition followed by emotional truth, spiritual pressure to align, and a deep calling toward wholeness. That is when the idea of transition begins to take shape. To the outside world, souls may seem to be crossing biological boundaries, yet in truth, they reveal something profound. Identity originates in the soul and not in the anatomy. They remind humanity that the body is simply the garment. Just as a car is useless without a driver, the soul is the life force wearing the body, and as long as it chooses to remain in this life, the body will always serve the soul. By honoring your inner truth in a world that often tries to silence it, you become catalysts of collective evolution. You remind us of these essential truths. The soul, number one, the soul is not defined by flesh. Number two, authenticity is divine obedience. Number three, Alignment is a spiritual necessity. And number 4, freedom begins within. By choosing yourself, you teach humanity to choose truth over comfort, essence over expectation, and energetic identity over physical conformity. You, Mr. Eli, are not here to simply fit into this world. You are here to help create a more enlightened one. Kudos and thank you for being an honored guest on the Hope Show.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, anything else would be superfluous. Yeah, Eli, thanks for joining us. Listen, for everyone at home, again, go love somebody. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, gentlemen.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.